Hello, family. Welcome to week 4 of HouseFires. I'm really feeling blessed and honored to be able to share because there's nothing more than I love doing than sharing about my experiences and walk with God. And I also love this topic. When Pastor Haupt first brought it up, she had talked about us taking time to think about our memories and our experiences, testimony with God during perseverance. And I think there are many ways to view perseverance and how it's a part of our faith, but I do think it's truly a key in our walk with God. When she had asked me about this, I had three really prominent memories or examples come up about moments that I had to deal with perseverance or go through perseverance with God. And as I was thinking about that, there was a common thread that really rose up in those three that were highlighted, because walking with the Lord now 29-ish years, I've had a lot of experience and a lot of opportunities to need to persevere and learn to trust God in different situations. So by the time these experiences came up, I can say that I really was at a place of trusting Him. And the common thread of these three things that I want to share is hearing God's voice and trusting it. And I always say obeying what He is saying. And we may not always think this, but there is actually peace in perseverance. Because during that time, the fruit of the Spirit comes with obeying. And of course, the fruit of the Spirit is peace. And when we take it into that context, we can have peace or we can have challenges. So I think sometimes we view perseverance as maybe trying to be patient, biting our lip, enduring, waiting for God to show up. But what He wants us to learn is to trust Him, to trust His voice. Because when we trust His voice during the process, we can have peace during whatever we are enduring. When He speaks, it seems like everything changes. And that is what can produce that really beautiful peace. The memories, I guess I call them memories, the testimony, the experiences that I had. The first one was when my twin daughters decided that it would be great to go to college in Australia. And while that seems like this really fun adventure, which I'm sure it was for them, it left a mom at home that honestly was brokenhearted. I was very close to them, and I think I thought I was going to be able to go along the journey with them. Do you know, just like hear every day of their experiences and be excited with them. But that was not the case. They were 18 years old and they're 33 now. And if anybody knows my daughters, they are always giggling, always laughing, always smiling. There's music playing in the background. The piano was playing, the guitar was going, they were singing. There was all of this beautiful, joyful sound. And I can honestly say all 18 years up to that point of their life, they had not fought. They didn't fight. There was never controversy. And I know that's not normal because I have 2 other daughters. And that's not always the case. But they were just always this light and this melodic energy of God in our house. So when they left, I really feel like it was. I was in a state of depression, and I know a lot of moms can relate. When your kids go off to college, it's an adjusting period. You know, just that you've spent your whole life raising these creatures, and then they're gone. And I think the challenge for me is they were in Australia. I couldn't get to them if they were sick. They couldn't come home on the weekend if they were homesick. There was so many challenges that my heart had to deal with. And then just the lack of their presence in the house, it felt very different. And I mean, we prepared in our home. We actually moved a few years prior to that because we knew that was on the horizon. We moved and we got land and we got horses. So we knew that our life was changing and we made those adjustments, but it did not accommodate any of those feelings. It did not, it didn't fix the loss that I was feeling. And I can honestly say I went into this really deep place of hurt. And I was talking to God about thinking this motherhood thing really isn't what it's cut out to be, because I also had my oldest daughter was living in Miami, Florida. So I'm like, what is this parenting? Like, you raise them, you put everything into them, and then they leave and they're gone. And I was sitting outside when the twins came home for a visit, and it was about 6 months into their journey of going to school. And one of them already had a boyfriend, kind of. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to end up living there. It was like, this is the rest of my life. And I was sitting outside as they were home for a visit. We were grilling out, and I was watching them. And I can't even say that my heart was filled with joy, because I thought they're going to leave. They're going to only be here a few days and they're going to leave. And it was one of those moments where, as I was sitting there, I said, God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let them go. I don't know how to continue life like this. And I can honestly say there were moments that I thought, it sounds dramatic, but like my heart was like, I don't want to do life like this. I don't understand this. And it was in that very moment that God's voice right behind me, and it was so real and so prominent that I always kind of joke that my hair must have just pluffed forward, because he said, I will never leave you brokenhearted. And there was something about when he speaks that everything changes. When he spoke that, I went, oh, okay, I'm going to be okay. I mean, maybe they are going to live there. Maybe they'll stay there. Maybe they'll come home. If they come home, everything will be okay, and I'll be okay. If they decide to stay there, or even one of them stays there and life looks different, I'm going to be okay, because he said, I will not leave you brokenhearted. And the peace that it brought was the power that I had to persevere. Now, one of them came home a year after that, and the other one was 3 years. But I wasn't in that state of grief. I wasn't in that state of mourning. I was in that state of, okay, this is still hard. I still miss them. But that deep level pain was gone, and I was able to persevere with God because he spoke. So there's power in when he speaks it. There could have been 100 people that told me, it's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It would not have had the same impact. But I had learned over the years, which had been about 19 years or so at that point, that I trusted his voice. I trusted his love for me. I trusted that he is always good. I trusted he is God. If he's telling me this, he's going to take care of it. He's going to take care of the situation. And so in the time after that, when I was able to be back on the worship team, having my daughters with me, those are moments that I'm like, thank you, Lord. Thank you for this. And now they all live within 10 or 15 minutes of me. So it's the process, though, right? It's the perseverance. Now, I could have gone through that brokenhearted the whole time, crying all the time, maybe even, turning to other ways to cope with that pain. But that's the beauty when we can hear his voice. So there's another situation where it was a few years after that, actually, maybe 4 or 5 years, and my mom passed away. And it was a sudden loss. There were so many times that she had been in the hospital, and we were certain that might be the situation, but she always pulled through. And this was a day that she had gone shopping. She went for lunch. She came home, said she had a really bad headache, and then she passed. And I think the fact that it was so sudden was difficult, but it was also like she was my best friend, and it was really hard just to lose her. I just felt she had so much time left. There was so much life in her. And one of my daughters was getting married 2 weeks later. And having to go through that without her was really difficult. And one day on the way home, I had asked the Lord, I said, Lord, you could have done this any way that you wanted. meaning like you could have set up how we experience life anyway. Why did you set it up that we had to experience this type of pain, this type of, this death and this mourning? And as I was driving, he just said, you don't see the bigger picture. And again, it was a moment where his spoken word to me just calmed the grief, calmed that deep mourning in my spirit. And I said, oh, okay. And it was like it was sufficient. His word is sufficient. When you learn to trust what he is saying, when he says it, again, my husband could have said it. So many people could have said, oh, we just don't see it. But when he said, you don't see the bigger picture, I knew that there was more. There's so much more that we don't understand. And then moments later, well, I'll back up a little bit. My mom was not an artist, but she loved this idea of watercolor. So I had bought her a set of watercolor paints for Christmas one year. And she had this very unique way of painting. It was just really unique. Do you know, like different artists, you can just see when you see their painting, like, oh, that's them. And this was my mom. She had this very wispy way of painting. Well, after the Lord spoke that to me, like I said, I was driving home. After he spoke that to me, the sky literally became a painting that looked it didn't become a painting. It became like looked exactly like one of my mom's paintings. So it was like the skies, the clouds and the sunset. It looked literally like one of her paintings. And it was a way that I feel like the Lord was really reassuring me that he heard what I was saying, that it wasn't just a flip statement or me thinking that I heard him. And as I looked up, and then I thought, wow, we don't see the bigger picture. Do we get to paint skyscapes in heaven? There's like so much that we can learn just like from hearing his voice that he will open up for us. So that was really a blessed moment. And even though, yes, I still missed my mom, I still had to go through the mourning, but I had those words and being able to walk through that with him. When it would get too much, I'm like, no, Lord, I know you told me. I don't see the bigger picture, and that's good enough for me. I can hang on to that. If that's what he wanted to share with me, that was good enough for me. The final thing I wanted to share, and I think it's a little bit of a different, part of the journey, is I had a situation where I had the opportunity to forgive someone in our church culture. And it wasn't that they had done anything wrong. It was just something that happened that really made me question our relationship. And it was so hurtful that I really had to think through, how do I want to move forward? Do I want to stay here in the church culture and push through this? Because I struggle not having total clarity in relationships. I can't have that thing, and I knew I had to deal with it. So I either had to forgive this person, or I had to maybe remove myself from being a pastor at the church and just go find another job. And it was really difficult because this relationship meant so much to me, but I didn't know how to get past the hurt. I didn't know how to move past it. And I think, we can go to the Lord with it, or we can kind of walk away and create our own story, if you will. Like I could have walked away and said, you know what? I just don't have the strength to do this. I think this culture maybe isn't for me. I'm going to go and do this. And it's okay. I forgive them, but I would have severed that relationship. So I went to the Lord and I'm like, what do you want me to do with this? Because maybe I care more about this relationship than this person does. Maybe this relationship isn't what I think it is. And the Lord's like, no, I've called you here. I've called you to this. I've called you to this person, and you need to forgive. And I'm like, yes, sir. Okay. And you know, we can walk through and say, yes, I forgive. But sometimes it takes walking with him. I don't know if you remember the shack where the father had to forgive this person for murdering his daughter. And of course, this is not nearly as tragic, but every day he had to say, I forgive. I forgive them. I forgive them. And the Lord, like, I had to walk through it with him. So every maybe comment that might have been made in that relationship, everything that would have rubbed against that wound, I had to go back going, no, Lord, I know you said forgive. I forgive them. I forgive them, Lord. I know this is what you want. I know, like, heal my heart. And there was a period of time that went by, and I was in worship with the Lord, not public worship, but just in my time with him. And he showed me this beautiful new part of him that I had never seen before. And I'm like, Lord, what is this? And he said, this is a part of my heart. I said, but I've never seen this before. Like, this is so beautiful. How did I get here? Like, why does this seem so different? And he said, honey, you can only see this part of my heart through the path of forgiveness. You know, we can miss opportunities that we think are hard, but when we persevere with him, he has so many incredible, beautiful things to show us. And like how many other things where he tells us in his word, do you know what to do? And we think, well, that's just, you know, the Christian way to be. But when there's these beautiful gifts on the other side that come from our obedience, it's so beautiful. And I wouldn't have traded that moment or that journey with him for anything. So there are just a few examples, and it comes from hearing his word, hearing his voice, hearing him speak to us. So it's going to bring me, I'm going to read the questions because this kind of ties in. So I have 3 different questions, and the first one is, do you currently hear his voice? In John 10:27, it says, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. Do you ever question if it is actually his voice that you're hearing? How can you ensure that it is? And I'm trusting that your discussions are going to go over some of that. The second question is, have you had a time you did hear his voice and had to walk it out in perseverance? And how did that end up going? How did that end up? So I wish I could be in each one of your groups and hear all of the conversations. The third question is, if you do hear him, do you still struggle to obey and follow him with peace? Isaiah 30:21 says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. You know, his beautiful guidance comes when we are attentive and we are obedient. And the final part of that question, I know this probably seems like 20 questions, but it says, can you now see how perseverance plays a huge part in developing that with him? To learn to hear his voice, to learn to trust his voice, and then bear the fruit of his Holy Spirit. That's my prayer and my wish for all of you tonight. And I hope that as you're discussing it, it just conjures up and you know, you start to remember all the times that he was there and you were able to just persevere with the Lord. I love you all. Again, I was so blessed to share, and I hope you have a great evening of discussion.